Hey, Shalom, all praise unto Yahweh Hashem Shai. Double honor to the apostles of Great Millstone. And honor to you brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. So we're going to get into the markets and see the current market health. Okay, we're going to go into a few articles showing you the setup. Because we are living in a setup. Okay, you got this thing happening right now with the UK elections. The main thing that they're emphasizing on is basically taking away your your civil liberties. All right, and we also know that a big part of the chip being implemented, the RFID chip spoken about within the book of Revelations, the 13th chapter, around about the 16th verse, is that the current way of functioning within the economic market is going to be changed. Okay. And in order to do that, you have to create economic chaos. So it's all good and well creating terroristic agendas, okay, to create civil unrest so you can take away civil liberties. But that's just one chunk of the chip that Esau's doing away with. He also needs it to where you have complete and utter economic chaos. Okay, so it's one thing having it to where you can track people in every movement that they make, but it's also going to be an additive to have it to where they use this instrument for commerce. Okay, so you can even better track what they're doing. Okay, because Esau's trying to obtain the birthright spoken about within the book of Genesis, the 25th chapter. All right, where with Jacob was going to have the inheritance of the whole world. In other words, to have the rulership and the ruling control of all the earth's resources. Okay, so without much further ado, I'm going to start off within this particular article and segue into the next RT article, which is called "It's Time to Sell." Experts warn for possible correction in U.S. markets, because right now, as a result of negative interest, and I'm going to get into that right in a second, and I'm going to show you why it's really actually a dangerous thing, and more than anything, it's an indicator that the economy that you're living in is actually doing worse, not great. Okay, because this is supposed to be a stimulus package, if you will. Okay, to give the economy that you're living in a stimuli, a rebirth, if you will, a rejuvenation, if you will. Okay, and these are the instruments that have been implemented since the 2008 market crash, and these are the instruments that were quote unquote implemented to revive the economy. Okay, but what you're seeing is that you're seeing a slowdown, and even if you had it to where the economy recovered, well, what they did, they pretended that the economy recovered by giving people more jobs, but these were zero contract hour jobs, by easing borrowing, so people got into more debt. So the economy is actually doing worse, but you don't see the mass effect of that because the interest rates are nigh onto zero, and in some cases even negative. So what you're seeing is a situation where this economic cataclysmic economic collapse is actually being is on a time span, if you will. Okay, because if you had the interest rates of 2008, then I believe this economy would have crashed and burned already. Okay, so let's get into this a little bit, and I'll try break down as much things as I physically can do. So it says U.S. Stock markets risk at highest level since 2008 financial crash. So like I said, the economic stimuli packages that they have out there, quantitative easing, relaxed borrowing, so near negative, near zero, and even a negative packages that they have out there, have it to where the economy can look like it's doing very well. Okay, but what you have is a situation where it's actually sluggish. Okay, and it's actually at the point where they're saying, these so-called experts, that they're about to hit another crisis. Okay, it's at risk again. So let's read some of this. It says American markets are facing the biggest danger of collapse since the financial crisis, according to money manager Bill Gross. Okay, and this is from RT, as you can see. Okay, and it says instead of buying, let's read this. It says the portfolio manager for Junus Global warns investors are paying too high a price for the risk risk they are taking. In other words, when you invest in a product, okay, whether it be on the housing market, whether it be into oil, okay, whatever the project may be, what you're hoping for is that you're gonna get a nice return on that. Now, what you could do is you could base your investment on previous expenditures. Okay, what other people are doing within the market. Okay, so you have a thing of euphoria. Okay, euphoric spending. Okay, buying certain things with the hope that you're gonna make a certain amount of money back. Okay, but what you're seeing now is as clearly described within this. He's saying that a lot of these so-called investors, they're just buying up stuff because the money is accessible because of the near to zero and negative interest rates. But ultimately, they're just hoping that they make a return. It's not a what you know as a calculated investment. Okay, so instead of buying low and selling high, you're buying high and crossing your fingers. Okay, all right. He said, "Good people ain't got no money, so they're charging full price for their so-called goods." Okay, so it says the 70-year-old bond guru blamed the central bank's policy for low and negative interest rates, which are artificially driving up asset prices while creating little growth in the real economy and punishing individual savers, banks, and insurance companies. So that segment here that you're reading here, we're gonna tackle it in this article here. But before we get into that, I'm just gonna carry on with this a little bit. So it says, expert focus U.S. economy at 2.2% this year and 2.3, which I think that's a stupid statement, because if you're saying it is at the brink of a crisis, all right, if it's at as high as risk, then you shouldn't be predicting some type of growth. Okay, you should stay with the same statement that you made in the initial, that you're saying it's at risk. Okay, so it says the gross, and they go into some numbers and so on and so forth. So now let's go into this this article to corroborate the points that we've made in the previous segment of this video. Okay, so it says it's time to sell. Right, expert warn for possible correction in U.S. stock markets. So if you watch that movie, The Big Short, and they was going into the economic crisis, okay, there was a point where they was just selling off, okay, because pretty much that if you hadn't sold off, you wasn't going to make a return on the investment that you have made. Okay, it was the cut off point. Okay, because when you got to where this economy crashes, well, you can't make your money back. Once the economy crashes, the value of the goods that you invested in is going to be nigh on to zero. So you gotta sell it off prior to that economy crashing. Okay, they showed you that in that movie Big Short, and I did a review of that movie. You could check that out for yourself. Amidst my uploads. Okay, so let's carry on with this a little bit. So it says, while stocks are trading close to their record highs, all right, the risk is rising and the markets is bracing for a possible correction, warns a president of the James Advantage Fund, James Advantage Fund, and the name of the individual is Barry James. So you got individuals out there, they call themselves Israelites. Okay, they're talking about their mind is somewhere else. Well, if you had any kind of spiritual inclination, that you would be able to decipher that there is no hope out here for Babylon. Okay, whether you're looking at it from a thing of them taking away a so-called civil liberty, so you being able to move how you want to move when you want to move, that's being taken away, or whether you're talking about the monetary side of things and the so-called prosperity of this kingdom. The scripture does say that the grinding will cease before the Lord's return, and that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing the grinding cease. Okay, in other words, the workmanship. Okay, money being made. All of that. That's a thing of America 2000. Okay, this ain't America 2000. We ain't talking about the technological, the internet boom. Okay, we ain't talking about America setting people out there on the moon or anything about that. We're talking about the precipice, the top, the peak of Babylon. We've reached the peak of Esau's technological advancements, his monetary advancements. Now it's just downhill until Yahweh Hashem al-Shai returns and sets up a kingdom. But see what he's doing, he's actually artificially doing this in where he's driving everything down so he can reestablish a new so-called new world order. But we know that Yahweh Hashem al-Shai is actually actually the one that he is establishing his own new world order. Okay, and that the Lord is setting up a kingdom, right, as pursuant to the book of Daniel, the 2nd chapter on the 44th verse, a kingdom which shall not be left over people, all right, but it shall break in pieces all of these kingdoms, right? And that's what we, as the men of the Lord, are supposed to be looking forward to. That's where our mind is at. That's where our faith, our fervor is supposed to be. Our desires, our passions. Okay, it's all good and well saying, look, 2 weeks time, I want to be able to do this in Babylon. How much more so are you going to be able to enjoy whatever particular pleasure that is in the kingdom of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua? Therefore, we say, as the scriptures say, you got to hasten the day of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. And there ain't no way you're hastening the day of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua if you're setting up businesses. Your whole heart, your anastrophe, your conversation, what you're about is going to be towards you succeeding within that business. Now, hey, the scripture talks about, should any eat if they don't work? Well, you got to work to eat. So you're going to be out there doing a job and so on and so forth. But in terms of advancing within this kingdom, that's going to be a thing, whether it's if it's on the table, you take it, but to go out there and chase it like that, I'll be wary. Okay? So it says we don't know where the peak will be in the markets. And that's the key thing to understand. Okay, when you understand how these crises are calculated in terms of what time span they're going to take place, these people use historical evidence to do this. In other words, a market will peak at a certain period of time, and there will be certain economic factors that people can see and measure and watch for. Okay, and then you will have it to where people will say, okay, boom, now that's what happened at this point. Okay, this is what's going to happen this time. And you got a great example that only existed 8 years ago. Okay, so when you got individuals talking about they're looking to advance themselves financially within the kingdom, that only 8 years ago they had the biggest crash, and they're saying they're seeing the same things that happened 8 years ago. Well, you got to be bugged out. Okay, you're going crazy. Okay, so it says, we don't know when the peak will be. We don't know when there will be a peak in the markets and they tumble, but it does look like the tire, like a tire with a bulge. Okay, it says he said in an interview with CNBC, right, citing firms indicators over the last month or so. It says James added, it's just a matter of whether the air leaks out slowly or quickly. Now we know that Esau is setting up a so-called new world order, so we know that air is going to come out quickly. In other words, it's going to burst. Okay, it's going to be chaos, economic upheaval, if you will. Well, so what else you got it to where people are running around trying to stay safe, and they got police out there with machine guns as if to say they're going to shoot bullets at some explosion, and that's somehow going to solve the situation. Okay, you're also going to have economic upheaval. And these are all things spoken about within the book of 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter. Chaos. Okay, complete and utter chaos. Okay, and all of those are necessary tools for Esau to implement his so-called new world order, to the end that these people are willing that these military is going to be out there, because they've just seen apparently so much chaos out there by way of these terrorists that they need those people out there. More to the point, when this economic upheaval is unleashed upon these people, when this economy crashes, these people are going to be praying for a new system to where they're going to be able to go to their Costas again, go to their Starbucks again, okay, buy nonsensical things that have no longevity, okay, invest in tangible goods that have no longevity. And that's what this kingdom is all about, vanity. That's what you call, that's the pure essence of vanity, investing in an item that's not going to even going to last a long time. Okay, when you go into the ancient kingdoms, you had it to where a certain man will invest a certain amount of time into a particular subject or field or understanding, and he will apply himself with that and grow within that facet. Okay, whether it be money that he's inherited from his parents, he will invest in the field, and you see the thing grow. They showed you that within the movie Kingdom of Heaven. Okay, he inherited, or he got that piece of land, and it was barren, it was shit. But over time, he worked it, man. Okay, and it quote unquote prospered. Okay, that's the thing of tangibility, man. That's the things that we're hoping for. Okay, so we're gonna inherit the remnant of this earth, and the Most High is gonna rebuild it. Okay, after the Most High unleashes them ICBM nuclear missiles to destroy Babylon. So it says here, So pretty much all that I wanted from this particular article is been hit. So now let's go into this. I mentioned this a little bit earlier on. So it says why negative interests are mad and bad, and dangerous. Okay, and this is posted from the Spectator. There's a few other different articles I could have gone into, but it should do the trick. So it says, what should we think about negative interests? What kind of Alice in the Wonderland world are we living in where companies and households are paid to borrow, right, and charged if they save? And that goes to show you the type of economy Esau's trying to set up, right? The express fulfillment, okay, of the book of Habakkuk, the second chapter, where with the scripture says he's basically his house is laden with a thick clay, okay? And when you check out that word thick clay means debts. Okay, so everybody in terms of in order to survive, it's got to borrow money from over there, borrow money from over there. It's crazy. Okay, so it says seemingly crazy, negative interests are spreading nonetheless. Implemented by central banks, and that's the important bit. That's the absolutely crucial bit to take away from this segment of the of this article. This is set up by central banks. Who owns the central banks? The so-called Jews. Okay, they're the ones that go into these different countries setting up central banks, and they have it to where these nations are indebted to them. Also, you can understand enslaved to them. Okay, and in setting up their chaos throughout their own central banks by way of negative interest or whatever. Okay, what they're gonna be able to do is actually have it to where the whole world is subjugated underneath them fully. Okay, so it says they now apply. In many countries, right, which the United States is one of those, and I don't know if Britain is just yet, but I think they're close to it. I think they're about 0.2 or 0.3, something ridiculous like that. Okay, so it says, should we be worried? Okay, could we see negative rates in Britain? This was 2016, so I don't know if they've quite got there just yet. It says earlier this month, the Bank of England cut interest rates for the first time in 7 years from 0.5% to our record low 0.25. And I believe I did a video on this when this happened. Quantitative easing was also restarted with the bank set to purchase 60 billion of bonds with newly created money over the next 6 months, right, up to 375 billion, etc., etc. Okay, let's move on to the next bit. 8 years from the onset of the financial crisis, and despite huge bouts on money printing and ultra low interest across the world, much of the Western world, global economy remains sluggish. Okay, so upon these what you call dangerous maneuvers, okay, for trying to boost some type of economic growth, the fact still remains that growth is still sluggish. Okay, researching for new ways to boost growth, which you ain't gonna be able to. The scripture talks about how if he was able to heal Babylon, would he will for her. Okay, that ain't gonna happen, right? Some central banks have stepped through the looking glass, set interest rates below zero. Okay, the European central banks went first in 2014, followed by Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland, and earlier this year, and this was 2016. So you can only imagine there's been a few that have actually implemented this tool. It says, and earlier this year, Japan. Private sector banks in these countries must now pay the central bank to keep their money on reserve. You save money, you have to pay for that. But if you borrow money, you get paid to borrow. So what's the end game? To be completely indebted onto the elite banking families. Okay, they're the ones that are in control. Now you're gonna be a complete slave underneath them. Okay, investors in the government bonds are similarly playing Japanese, German, and Swiss governments for the privilege of lending to them. Another example for topsy-turvy economics. This idea, by penalizing cash on deposits, negative rates will jolt spending and encourage banks to extend loans, thereby boosting the economy. There is little evidence that this outlandish policy works, though increasing concern is that it could soon backfire. While encouraging lending is the theory, negative rates squeeze bank profits. Okay, and if you understand anything about how these different businesses work, Well, you're gonna have it to where a small business is gonna apply for a business loan from a bank, and that bank is gonna take it out of the profits that it has, or the profits that it's gonna track forward within its future. Okay, so if you got it to where you got less profits, all right, within the banks, in other words, the banks are being squeezed. Well, guess what? Small business loans are actually not going to be made. Okay, so you, me, Tom, Dick, and Harry ain't going to be having no jobs, because there ain't going to be no jobs because the businesses didn't get the business loans that they desired. Ain't nobody out here with just money like that to just invest. Okay, even if they do, they're borrowing money. Okay, so they have it to where you have a business account, and when the business account goes bust, they go bust, and they still got money in their pocket. Okay, that's how this world works. Right? It says, if conversely banks try passing on negative rates, firms and households could withdraw money, stuffing it underneath the proverbial mattress, and denying banks of crucial funding source. Japan has certainly seen a surge in sales of safes since interest rates turned negative, pointing to the physical cash hoarding. Across Europe, banks are exploring the cost of keeping piles of cash in vaults to avoid charges. The Swiss canton Zug, canton of Zug, right? Meanwhile, is in an eye-catching reversal of normality. I started penalizing those who pay tax bills early. Right, faced with negative government bond yields, pension funds, and other international investors needing returns to meet their obligation, pursue an intensive search for yields, channeling money into risky assets and stocks, and stocking up the chances for another boom bust cycle. Right, far from mending our economy, the then quantitative easing, right, ultra low interest rates could provoke another crash. Right, even more quantitative easing and negative rates make much more dangerous, make such dangers more acute still. Okay, so ultimately, that's what happens. It's just gonna get worse and worse and worse by way of these measures that they put in. So hopefully that was of edification. As you can see, Babylon is pretty much done financially. Whether you're talking about civil liberties, whether you're talking about prosperity, that's all done. Okay, and hopefully that was of edification. But I say, all praise unto Yahweh Shemi Shai. Double honors to the apostles of great millstone. Honestly, brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity and laws. But I'll see you on the next one. Shalom.